Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Paul, and in this RedGamingTech.com video, we're going to be discussing as well as analysing tech news, which as usual, has popped up in the past 24 or so hours. Hopefully, you're having an amazing day. We have quite a lot of console-related stuffs to go through in today's video. There's also another video which is going up today as well, focused on tons of NVIDIA information for the next generation GeForce series, but given there is just so much console-related stuff too, I decided to split the videos up. And the first thing I'd like to discuss is the PlayStation 5, as there is a fascinating rumour and demo that's floating around. And this is again from Jace Skell. Now, his Twitter account is now protected, which means that only followers of Jace, who he accepts the pending invitation for being able to view his Twitter timeline, are able to view his tweets. But with that said, several people have screen grabbed it, and I've also had a chap myself who was very kind, Wayne, who actually grabbed images as well as some of the video that Jace has been showing off. And this is allegedly a PlayStation 5 technical demo. I'll go into just the details in a second, but I want to, state right off the bat that I don't know, A, if this demo is real, and B, obviously the exact details of the demo are still kind of, well, not 100% clear. And the demo itself is not of high quality, the grabs that we have. So with that said though, demos are generally created as the system is being brought up, and this is for a plethora of reasons. A, obviously to kind of figure out what the system's capable of, and for developers to actually be inspired, that is, both internal developers as well as developers who are choosing to craft experiences from outside of Sony or Microsoft's ecosystem, so for example the Ubisoft's, Electronic Arts of the world. But it also, of course, serves to help bring up the system as well, like improve development tools and just do a whole bunch of stuff. There's, of course, lots of reasons to show demos and create them, and it also helps wow us as well as end users. But with that said, a lot of the time demos are not necessarily shown off to the public, and they can be just used for internal scenarios. Naturally, we saw the Unreal Engine 5 demo earlier this year, and I keep saying this, I know I sound like a broken record, but UE5, to me anyway, looks extremely exciting. I don't think we've seen all of the features by any stretch of the imagination that Epic Games will be incorporating into UE5, with obviously Nanite as well as Lumen, with Lumen of course being the real-time global illumination. But obviously the later versions of UE4 already have things like hardware-based ray tracing anyway support for the next generation consoles, so the PS5 and Xbox Series X are supported. I don't know I can't remember now if it's out of beta, but the beta versions of the later UE4 releases, I might be wrong, it might be now into final releases, but I can't remember. I definitely know that the betas were supporting that. Boy, that was a long intro. Anyway, so Jace Skell, as I said, has protected their tweets, but there are a crap ton of images that are floating around, and we also have, fortunately, some information to what the demo is supposed to be. And allegedly the demo was crafted last year, and I'm going to quote this verbatim, although you can see it on screen. Once again, thanks to Wayne for grabbing the screenshots. It was to test how far we can take the PlayStation 5's ray tracing and smart shift capabilities, and we were dazzled for the fact that this demo only shows the minimum PS5 tech capabilities, and we're only finishing the alpha phase. Again, this demo is from apparently 2019, so this is not this year, which likely means that the hardware itself is not from a later version of the development kit. But again, a lot of the details, we are getting second-hand or perhaps even third-hand information here, which means it's rather difficult to get an exact understanding of what is being tested. if you thought Silent Hills or something else when you saw this demo, I will give you a cookie, because honestly, that's exactly what I thought as well. It looks really like some type of Silent Hills demo. And you can clearly see just how much detail there is. I will grant you, of course, there is tons of compression here because it's a screen grab of a screen grab, which is never exactly the best thing ever for improving visual quality, as I'm sure you'll agree. But even so, I would be hard-pressed to criticize how this looks aesthetically. It looks really impressive. And again, this is a tech demo, and from the verbiage they're using, it seems like it's still pretty early. Does it really mean anything, though, in terms of the actual hardware itself? Well, ultimately, a demo is a demo. What I can say, and a couple of people actually reminded me about this, is that Klee Game Fan, who was or used to post on NeoGAF but has now been banned. I will stress that the ban was a self-imposed ban. They basically just wanted out of the console generation wars, and I understand and respect that. Basically, they actually said that the demo itself, well, this news, by the way, floating around last year, was highly impressive, and this information came around mid-October of last year. So Klee Game Fan actually did mention about this demo. So again, this information, it doesn't necessarily change a whole lot, but it does provide us context perhaps of the demo. I personally do believe that it's going to take a while for developers to fully get to grips, as with every console generation, what exactly the systems are capable of. Yeah. As for whether the demo itself impacts us as end users, well, no. But it is cool. And for people who are interested in the technology, I think it's pretty damn interesting. And from Sony, I really want to discuss a couple of things for Microsoft. The first is actually very interesting news for Microsoft in terms of their games going forward. Apparently, Microsoft are hiring a Destiny 2 writer as well as the director of Tomb Raider. And this is its term, not mine, for a quadruple A studio. And studio head Daryl Gallagher has actually announced a new round of initiative hires. This is, by the way, courtesy of IGN. And they announced this on LinkedIn. So the most notable names, at least in my opinion, were Remy Lacoste. I hopefully pronounced that correctly. I'm terrible with names, pronunciation, as regular viewers know. I butcher them regularly. He is a former director of Shadow of the Tomb Raider, as well as Avengers. I guess we can forgive him for at least one of those. And Christine Thompson. And she was the former narrative lead on Destiny 2. Lacoste is taking up the role of experimental director, which is interesting. And Christine Thompson, she is going to be the lead writer. Again, we do not know what the initiative is working on. This could be for an entirely new team, entirely new project, not team. But it's very interesting that this is happening. There are tons of other hires, though, that Microsoft have made. And this does include folks who used to work at Respawn, and even folks who used to work at Naughty Dog. Francisco Garcia actually used to work at Naughty Dog as the senior gameplay engineer, for example. What I'm trying to stress is that Microsoft are pushing heavily at the moment on their games lineup. And I've mentioned multiple times that I think that Microsoft's games, first party, are going to be really good. I think it's just going to take them time to kind of kick in. I think Microsoft's strategy long term, though, is going to work for Microsoft. Microsoft isn't just the Xbox for the physical hardware. They, of course, care about a lot of different metrics to Sony. And yes, naturally, that isn't to say that sales figures of the actual hardware itself don't matter. But what it does mean is that they care about things like the number of people who have, say, Game Pass, They care about the number of people who are in the Xbox ecosystem. And again, I think that they will, long term, have a slightly different business model to Sony. It's interesting because Sony have typically had these massive AAA titles, like, for example, Spider-Man and Uncharted and whatever else. It's not to say that Microsoft haven't had large, titles. For example, Gears 5, one of my favourite games on the Xbox/PC. But I think Sony at the moment are very well known for those massive kind of single-player experiences, and I'm hoping Microsoft will continue to push that, because ultimately it obviously benefits us. Flight Simulator is being very well received on the PC. Obviously, it just can't run on current generation hardware for the Xbox. It just doesn't have the CPU capacity to handle it. To be really honest, they would need to cut it back so much, as well as the actual hardware requirements themselves are so damn steep for Flight Simulator. It's making, at least if you're running at higher resolutions, even PCs with like 32 gigabytes of RAM and an RTX 2080 Ti struggle. A 2080 Ti can literally, assuming you crank all of the visual details up with high resolution, everything else, you can hit like 11 gigabytes of VRAM usage on that thing. That's what I'm hearing. I still haven't tried the game out myself, but I've had a couple of people who've sent me screenshots with like 11 gigs literally maxed out. And so yeah, the game is extremely demanding. But I think Game Pass is going to serve Microsoft very well in the longer term. And there's also another rumour that's been laid to rest. As you are likely aware, Microsoft allegedly cancelled Halo for the Xbox One. That is Halo Infinite, of course. And this apparently is not the case. Instead, this is going to still be a multi-generation release. And this is not second-hand information. This is from John Junasek. Hopefully I've pronounced that last name correctly. That seems to be a common theme of this video. They are a community manager over at 343, so obviously they are in the position to speak authoritatively on this. And they've said that we've seen a ton of fake leaks out there, so please don't believe everything you read. We have no plans to change our 2021 release date on all devices and platforms we'll be supporting. We're building Halo Infinite to be the best it can be on each device/platform. So this follows, of course, after not only rumours that the Xbox One version was going to be canned, but we may even see a release until 2022. I've mentioned in the video where I covered this that, to my knowledge, the game had started over in development twice. But, to my knowledge, that the game was still progressing very well. I had no information whether the game was going to be cancelled for the Xbox One. Honestly, I kind of didn't really think it would be, because it, for one, would be a ton of egg on the face for Microsoft. I think, yes, there are definitely some limitations of running on the Xbox One hardware, but I mentioned in that video too that from what I understood, there were some differences in the code, and no, I don't just mean like lower resolution or like a loading screen. Perhaps some changes in geometry or some levels being changed to a degree to obviously support the fact that we're looking at essentially a different set of hardware. So just pulling data in from the hard drive itself of the Xbox One X is obviously way slower than the SSD of the Xbox Series X by, an order of magnitude. So I think that makes sense to me. The only real negative of supporting the older generation, if you have two different code branches, so you can maximize what the Xbox Series X version is doing. And again, I can't verify this myself, it's just what I'm being told. The only real negative is that it's a ton of extra work, because obviously developers are working on two separate, I wouldn't say separate projects, they are still Halo Infinite, so it's not like someone's getting an entirely watered down thing with, like Pong graphics or something like that. So it's still going to be Halo Infinite, it's just going to have perhaps some changes in the level here and there, or whatever else. To my understanding, I might be wrong, just so that obviously it can run on the older system. The thing is, though, it means that you're going to have to reauthor, for example, textures, You're going to have to perhaps reauthor models. You're going to have to change, for example, certain things, like maybe to, let's say, have a massive open environment on the Xbox Series X and stream in all of that data. That's possible in the next-gen console, but maybe, and I speak once again without confirmation here, I'm just guessing, spitballing, maybe they would have to do something like, I don't know, put a set of trees there or something like that, just so that you can't see ahead of you. And maybe, it would look pretty cool. I don't have any issues with them doing this. I think the multiplayer aspect as well would be interesting, how they end up handling all of that. I suspect that there's probably going to be more uniformity on the multiplayer side of the equation. I'm actually okay with this. I'm okay with Microsoft doing this. I think it's fine. I just hope that the game's cool. Having 2 versions of the code's fine, assuming they've got the resources to be able to develop it. It's that simple, really. It's really down to resources, and Microsoft obviously are a studio that have a ton of resources. The final thing that I'd like to cover today, and this is a quickie, is that the initiative, you've probably heard for a long time now that Perfect Dark is being worked on internally. I've even mentioned it a couple of times myself, that I'm hearing Perfect Dark is all but confirmed, and Jeff Grubb has actually confirmed this, but it's not 100% Perfect Dark, at least according to him. It's in the same universe, but it's not Perfect Dark how we know it. And one of the things that perhaps is going to change, it looks like, is that the game's going to be in a third person, which I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. I kind of like the first-person aspect of Perfect Dark, but it's not like I'm seeing it. I mean, it kind of seems like Joanna is not going to be part of this. Maybe you play as like a different agent or something entirely different, I don't know. I'm okay with it. I mean, once again, just guessing, but maybe it could be something like, I don't know, like a Splinter Cell. Or, I don't know, like something more sneaky rather than combat-focused, which would makes sense given the different perspective. Like, I don't know, like a stealth game like Metal Gear Solid or Perfect Dark, or sorry, not Perfect Dark, or Splinter Cell or something like that. That could be pretty cool. And there is obviously a lot of focus on technology with Perfect Dark anyway, so yeah, I think it would be pretty damn cool if it's done right. I've not got any issues for it. I just want to see some gameplay. But with all of that said, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Normal stuff if you did. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye for now.